Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. I made this video, Flat Earth versus Globe Earth Challenge, on December the 30th, and so I thought it was about time to have a look at the comments that have been made and offer up some responses. Just to reiterate, the challenge was to see if it's possible to scientifically prove and verify that down on the real Earth is perpendicular to the original down. So here we have a circle representing the globe Earth, a line down here representing down for someone on top of the globe here, and then if they move to the equator, then down would become perpendicular to their original down. And a clause in there, if you like, that with the knowledge that people would use observations of celestial objects as so-called proof. So I wanted to add that you must be able to prove that you can measure these assumed distances as well as factor in perspective to the observations that are said to prove that down becomes perpendicular. So a couple of reasons for doing this was mainly really to get people to think about what proofs do we actually have to stick to this idea that we can stick to the outside of a ball, which we know is physically impossible, but we also know that there is a model and mathematics to compensate for this idea that goes against natural, real physics. So it becomes theoretical physics, and it involves us having to perceive the Earth as a globe floating around in space, along with all these other planets, as it were. So obviously I wanted to demonstrate that Flat Earthers understand the model. It's really not difficult to understand that anywhere on a sphere, then down becomes towards the center of that sphere, and then you can go and call wherever you are on that sphere level. So we all understand the concept, but I wanted to see if it's if you could kind of get people to think about if there are any other ways of proving this idea as our physical reality, apart from just looking up at the stars. So of course the clause was in there that if you use celestial objects as proof, you must first be able to prove that you can measure the assumed distances and factor in perspective to these observations. Now, we all know that, for example, if Polaris is somewhere above the globe Earth here, above the North Pole, then the idea is that the further away you get from it around this sphere, then the lower that Polaris will appear to get towards the horizon. This is an observational reality, and we do know that and this can be confirmed, and navigation has been done for hundreds if not thousands of years using this method. The latitude lines for navigation were created pretty much based on this this idea or fact, let's say, observational fact that the farther away you get from the North Pole, then the lower Polaris appears to get towards the horizon. For me here in Phuket, it's really just on the horizon. I'm lucky if I can see it. If there are no trees and buildings in the way, then I can just about see Polaris a few degrees above the horizon. And of course this would seem to offer up some kind of proof that we are on a globe, but it's really just an interpretation. So yes, it's a fact, and no one's ignoring the fact that the further away you get from Polaris, the lower down on the horizon it appears to be. And of course you get beyond the equator and you can start to see the southern stars. I can pretty much see the Southern Cross from where I am here in Phuket, just above the equator, but it kind of peaks up above the horizon, and it does arc its way across and then make its way back down again. So it's interesting. The stars most of the stars seem to follow a kind of very almost straight line across the horizon, but as I look south, then there is a bit of a curve. But this really is the globe here is an interpretation of the reality that we see. You know, it's often considered that looking up at the sky and seeing the way the stars are proves that we're on a globe. No, the globe is just an interpretation, one choice interpretation of what we see, and it all works perfectly fine across a flat Earth. Just like a row of streetlights, for example, going off into the distance away from you, the further away you are from those, or the further away the streetlights get, then of course the closer towards the horizon they will appear to be. So this is this is a repeatable scientific observation that anyone can make anytime, anywhere, using a row of something that's higher than your eye level and seeing that it goes down towards the horizon, your eye level, or the celestial horizon, as it's called. So, yeah, I wanted to highlight that the model is understood by flat earthers. No one ignores the model. In fact, you know, to get to the realization that we're not on a spinning globe, you do in fact have to kind of revisit all the so-called physics and the mathematical models and everything that's been put up as so-called proof. And if you do look into how, you know, you've got to kind of reverse engineer the globe. And of course we know about Eratosthenes and how the shadows from the sun, etc. All these ancient observations have been done by looking up at the sky. And if you think about it critically, with a certain amount of detachment, then you can of course realize that the whole thing is really open to interpretation. So this geometric model of the Earth is just one possible interpretation, and I've said it many times before, but it ignores perspective, or it replaces our perspective of what we see in the sky with this imaginary curve. So anyway, I wanted to go through the responses that I got to this. It certainly wasn't done as just a throwaway thing. I really hoped that people would think about it, and some did. It's really nice. Oh, I have a couple of comments for review there. They must be new, but yeah, we'll have a look at that later. I pinned this one because it's just so kind of typical, and I'm sorry, but it's just not. It has. To answer the question, if you drop an object anywhere on the Earth, it will always fall down towards the ground. It's not that difficult to get your head around. Again, I actually loved that comment and pinned it to the top because this is the common unthinking, uncritical response that you would get. The fact that you can drop something through the air, and apparently that's because we're on a spinning ball. The fact that something will fall to the ground through the air, which is nonsense, absolute nonsense. The fact that this heavy battery will fall through the air and then be prevented from falling by a solid surface doesn't prove anything, apart from the fact that I put something heavy in the air and the air can't support it. So yeah, and so a big line of things ensued there, which I'm not going to go through, but that was basically why I pinned that comment, because I wanted to. And Danny Ladd there does understand. He actually says, I like how you pin my comment as if to say I'm the one being stupid, and this is by someone who thinks the moon could well be the shape of a salad bowl. All right, he's referring to my moon observation, comparing an orange and a salad bowl to the moon. Again, this was something that it's just grab whatever's to hand that it's making observations into the sky and then assuming that the Earth is a ball because of that. So it'd be great if people understood these things which seem very silly, but if you look at some of the the ways we're expected to believe that we're on a spinning globe, then they're all very silly as well. Anyway, Bob the science guy, who is under the delusion that I pulled some kind of carnival trick with a lighter when demonstrating perspective. The simple fact that I was talking about the two mountains in this Mount Rainier challenge. I started off with 3 lighters to demonstrate perspective, and then I was actually, the point of the video was to talk about these 2 mountains of differing heights in this Mount Rainier challenge, and so I took away one of the lighters and left 2 there to represent 2 mountains. And Bob the science guy here thinks I pulled some kind of carnival style illusion, and even made a video about it. It's quite pathetic, really. But anyway, despite his desire to trash me, he's still allowed to have his comment. Excuse me. So he says here, the easiest way would be to combine a spirit level, which will determine the perpendicular to the radius line we are standing on, and a sextant to determine the tangent. That is how I would do it. We calculate the distance to celestial objects, and then he's going on about Dr. Grande, blah blah blah. Well, maybe Bob didn't even look at the video I did before. Maybe a lot of people haven't seen this one, where I took a flight from Phuket to London, and took my phone with me, took a spirit, which had a spirit level app installed on it, and I tried my best to set it up so that it would be possible to detect a difference in this. So I was coming up. If it was on the globe, I was coming up from the equator to the UK. So I set my spirit level as level here. I recalibrated it while I was at Phuket International Airport, and then the idea was that if we were on a globe, then it would show a difference in the level by the time I got to the UK compared to the level it was set at. There was no change, absolutely no change at all. Put it on the floor and it was still level. So this was just something that I tried to do scientifically. Had the opportunity to travel about 10,000 kilometers and see if I could actually find or measure some curvature, see if there was a way to prove that this down would change direction by going around an alleged globe Earth. Couldn't be done. I couldn't, you know, obviously I tried it there and back, and I've tried it on other flights and things. Of course, if you put the spirit level on an incline here, then it will, and you can reset it, and it will believe then that the incline that you've set it on is its level. So you can set these apps to do that and redefine level for the app. So anyway, it didn't make any difference. Traveling 10,000 kilometers made no change to the level of the app. So I've done my due diligence there, and Bob had this idea. So it seems he hasn't seen that experiment that I did. And then the sextant thing, which again is as we've mentioned, you know, the Polaris appearing to get lower and lower towards the horizon is just a natural result of perspective. So cool, you thought about it, Bob, but maybe you didn't realize that this experiment has already been done by quite a few people, and yeah, you don't get any indication or physical proof that, or certainly no verification that down becomes perpendicular. Now, if you really think about it, it's like gravity is something that you'd have to assume breaks all the laws of physics. It basically means that the heavier something is, the more easily it will stick to the outside of a ball, therefore becoming upside down compared to wherever it was in the first place. There is no physics for this idea that the heavier something is, the more easily it will stick in all directions around a sphere. But that's what the gravity equations for the globe Earth are supposed to prove. It's ridiculous. I mean, another thing that we, you know, the whole, if you just actually consider and think critically about the what the description of gravity is, it's basically the more mass something has, like this battery, the greater the attraction towards another mass, or basically the more mass something has, the heavier it is. You know, it's just it's just telling you that the more mass something has, the heavier it is. That's it. That is it. There's nothing more to it. It's just a conversion of weight. It really is just a conversion of weight. And of course, it's all based on looking up at the stars and seeing moons orbit planets, and assuming that these planets have specific masses and speeds and distances and sizes, what have you. It's just anyway. Stormtrooper 3, get a hammer and lay down. Get a hammer and lay down. Let someone else hold the hammer above your head. About 3 meters should be enough. Get the person to let go of the hammer. God, yeah. So again, what's he saying here? 1, gravity. 2, where is down? 3, is your head less dense than a hammer? Yeah, so again, just inane response. Drop a hammer on someone's head. That proves that we're on a ball. Dear. 15 replies to that. Can't be bothered. Okay, so here we go. This guy, 8 Aleph, whatever. It's very simple. You cannot see Polaris from Argentina. Boom. And that's supposed to be a proof. The fact that things get lower towards the horizon the further away you get, just as they do across a flat surface, is supposed to be proof that we're on a globe. Absolute load of bollocks. Doug Van der Hoop. I think that flat earthers are not for the most part the same as 6-month-old baby. You can explain that 1 + 1 = 2, and you can prove it to them. Yet they lack the mental capacity to grasp the concept, not because they are mentally retarded, it is because they have yet to develop them. Fuck. Yes. 1 battery plus 1 battery = 2 batteries. Cool, fine. There's 2 batteries right here, 1 + 1. But if I just say 1 + 1 = 2, does that produce 2 things magically? No. So I can tell a story with this mathematical language, 1 + 1 = 2, or I can relay facts, 1 + 1 = 2. There's a difference, yeah? It's very simple. So, yeah. Whatever. Tim Pilkington. We can't prove anything to you flurfers. The shape of the Earth, gravity, celestial mechanics, etc. have been proven already. You lot just cry fake, or flat out, pun intended, ignore it. All that's left is to laugh at your ignorance. No, we don't ignore it, okay? It's... I think I've already explained that in the introduction. So... Again, celestial mechanics, yes, we see moons appearing to orbit other planets, and we see planets doing orbits around the sun, etc. What's the cause of that? What are those distances? None of that's really verifiable as that these objects have mass. I mean, look at the pictures people take video of Venus, and it's just a light. It's a light of squiggly lights in the sky, but we're told this is mass, and that we have this science, this physics, which is based on the idea that masses attract other masses. It's never been proven. What got it all spinning in the first place anyway? Nobody knows. So that's that. Carl M. Here's the answer. Fact. The Earth has 2 celestial poles. Does it? Okay, that's a fact, apparently. Fact. At the poles, only one celestial pole is visible, and it is always vertical above the observer. Okay, that may be true for Polaris, but there doesn't seem to be a southern pole. All explained with perspective. Anyway, again, we're looking up at the sky to determine the shape of the Earth. Load of bollocks. From the equator, each celestial pole is at alternate horizons. Yes, I can look at Polaris, and I can look at the Southern Cross from where I am. So what? Doesn't prove anything. It proves they're both far away. And he believes that we've answered Pookie's challenge and disproved a flat Earth is one shot. No, there never is one proof. There isn't a single proof, unless it is that you actually see, gets to see the globe Earth from space, spinning around, doing its orbits around the sun, with the moon and everything all there, the stars and all that. That would be great, but of course we've never ever seen that. That's never even been produced. I mean, there are no pictures. There is no footage of the globe in space going around the sun. None. Nothing's been done. Ever. Wouldn't it be great? I mean, I'd be happy to have the trillions of taxpayers' dollars spent to do that, to see the solar system in action. Why can't it be done? Andy Donaldson. We know the distance to the stars using parallax. No, you don't. You don't know the distance to the stars just because they appear to have some parallax. The most you might have is a couple of layers of stars in fixed positions that depending on the observer and depending on what they're doing might appear to change. It doesn't prove anything. So from this we know the pole star Polaris is 433 light years away. You don't know that. Anyone with an ounce of common sense and the ability to think constructively about this will at least be able to admit that we don't know that. You can make this assumption and maybe calculate it based, but you can't. Light years. You know, for 20 years they were arguing about what the light year is, how to define the astronomical unit, and it was just a battle between university professors and who could come up with the most convenient number to describe an astronomical astronomical unit, basically a light year, the distance light should travel in a year. It's all just a load of egotistical bollocks. That is not rooted in any kind of proof. No, you can't. No one's ever actually. You can't measure a light year. You can only maybe conceive it as an idea, but you can't even really imagine it. Mendel, perspective is not a factor with celestial objects because A, the fixed stars look the same from every place on Earth that they are visible, depending on... okay, so you're saying that because we don't see stars come closer together or get squished as they get towards the horizon, then perspective isn't a factor. In fact, if you actually take the time to look up at the stars, you'll see that they're actually quite far apart most of the time. And it really is impossible to tell their distance or even know what they are. And... we don't see very far from horizon to horizon, you know, from this 180 degrees to the other. We really don't see very far. If you look at the clouds that we can see that appear to be hitting the horizon, it's not very far. And again, this is something that I encourage anyone to check out Gav's work from Beyond the Imaginary Curve, because he basically tells it how it is, and that's that the geometry of perspective is the geometry of the globe. It's the same thing, and this is all related to the nautical miles as well. So you see, at the very, very least, you know, you could ask reasonably that people be reasonable to admit that well, it could be interpreted either way. But no, you have this dogged determination to stick to this idea that Polaris, for example, and its distance above the horizon is some kind of proof of the globe. Whereas at the very least you could admit that it could be one way or the other. At least be man enough to admit that. And again, it is interesting that it's mostly men that enter into this argument. There are, of course, a few women here that on you know, flat earthers and globe earth defenders, but it's mostly men that get embroiled in these egotistical arguments and the idea that they have the answers to life, universe, and everything, because of a bunch of guys in wigs a few hundred years ago. Yeah, obviously geometry is it's almost like a battle between geometry and other branches of mathematics to say, you know, this, yeah, again, why use geometry? Why use geometry for the globe when geometry is actually related to perspective, but perspective is not something that's really properly taught. It used to be, obviously, but not anymore. Kenny Knackers, the drugs must be good where you are. No, I'm not doing drugs. I don't really drink. I'm not smoking. The only thing I'm doing is smoking cigarettes here. Hans de Mons, Phuket word, just take geodetic surveying as your proof. And if you don't trust lasers and modern electronics, just use old-fashioned theodolites or fashion your own with plumb bobs. Spirit levels and telescopes. Starting from your point of origin, you set up... Right, again. Okay. Now, to observe the difference in the angle of the plumb bob at your second measuring point, as indicated by the length above the normal height of your telescope that you observe on the measuring rod at the second measuring point. It's not really saying anything that, again, you can't measure the difference in the angles. There is no way of, for example, you might put a plumb bob here and a plumb bob here, and then apparently you're able to measure the difference in the angles between them. I suppose, again, you're talking about, if they're like that, then you would be assuming that you're looking up at different stars, or the star that you could see up here above you has now come lower to the horizon. Alright, I got interrupted just now. Had to get the kids to bed, so I'm continuing this in the early hours of the morning. The sun should be up soon. That would be nice. Maybe get some dawn chorus coming through the window. Mendel, perspective is not a factor with celestial objects because, well, that's a very bad statement to make in the first place, because perspective governs any observation that we make. So, to be honest, whatever you're going to say next is not going to be based on anything factual, but we'll have a look. A, the fixed stars look the same from every place on Earth that they're visible. Yeah. Depending on location, only parts of the stars may be visible, and it may depend on the time of day, time of year, but the closer places on Earth are together, the more overlap they have. Yeah, you're just talking about the difference between day and night. Sure, if it's daytime, then it makes a difference to how much of the night sky you see. And of course, in the northern hemisphere, then hemisphere north of the equator, you do see a difference throughout the year because you get longer and shorter days. I remember in the UK being out playing football until maybe 10 o'clock at night before it would get dark. But here in Phuket it gets dark regular as clockwork around 6:30 every day. Changes a few minutes either side, but that's throughout the year. So this is why I see the same stars in the same locations at the same time every single night, every single day of the year, because the time that it's day and night for doesn't really change. But of course, if you're somewhere else where you get longer and shorter days throughout the year, then it's the daylight time, length of day, that makes a difference to what stars you see at what times. It's just it's not rocket science. Zetetic astronomy explains this very well. There is no perspective distortion in evidence. So, okay, I suppose you mean that you don't see this bunching up of the stars as they go off across towards the horizon. Actually, the distance that we can see across the horizon is very short. And to me, again, that indicates that the sun, moon, and stars are very close, but they're also that kind of demonstrates the esoteric nature in which these things in the sky are both subjective and objective in nature. The fact that we all see the same face and phases of the moon, no matter where we are, is something akin to one of those concave masks that it doesn't matter which direction you look at the mask from, it will always appear to, the eyes will appear to follow you. You don't get that with a sphere, because you will, if you change your point of view with a sphere, then you will see different parts of it. But with something concave or holographic, as it were, we see the same thing no matter what our location is. I'm not claiming that the moon is concave or holographic. I'm just saying I don't know. Just making comparisons with the observations that we can make with other things. So where were we? Okay, set as they approach the horizon. Yes, perspective works for lines parallel to the surface. The stars do not move along parallel lines to the surface. Okay, fine, but yes, I mean, this whole thing about parallel lines and perspective is just that we know that straight parallel lines appear to converge. I'm not saying that the stars are parallel lines, so it's slightly different in that respect, but okay. Accounting for perspective on the stars means saying that perspective has no effect on them. Oh dear, you're just very, very confusing. I've tried to be very clear in my thing here, but so when people just kind of like that, it's pointless trying to work out what they're actually trying to say. Le polygone. You observe the moon in the same time zone in the, oh god, time zones, northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. Same size, same face, but it rotated on itself. Oh my god, I've already gone through this. Oh, come on. The fact that you can be on one side, just paste a picture of a moon on your ceiling or stick it on the floor, stand on one side of your flat room, look at it, and then go and stand on the other side of the flat room and look at it, and you'll be looking at it from a different direction. You don't have to be on a ball for that to happen. God! Oh. Ronnie Foshi. I've noticed the flat earth deniers will keep saying we don't understand. Oh yes, absolutely. They say you don't understand the model. We do. We understand the model, we understand the physics, we understand the mathematics. We endeavour to try to understand it, to to clarify the issue. So yes, you're absolutely correct, but people will then say, oh, you don't understand. We do. We understand that there is no real relationship between the mathematical models we're presented with and reality. Hans de Mons, Phuket word, just take geodetic surveying as your proof. And if you don't trust lasers and modern electronics, just use old-fashioned theodolites or fashion your own with plumb bobs, spirit levels and telescopes. Starting from your point of origin, you set up your first measuring point with your favourite levelling device and use your now horizontal telescope to observe the difference in the angle of the plumb bob at your second measuring point. Yes, I mean, if you could do that, if you could, as we showed in the picture, if you could have a plumb bob here and a plumb bob here, and then this one, if you could physically measure that there is a difference between these angles, brilliant. So it's a good theory, but this is not something we can actually do in a practical reality. So no, you do not win, you do not get a prize because you haven't been able to demonstrate the idea. Sleeping Warrior, gyroscopes prove antipodal positions relative to where you last set it. Okay, yeah, I'd say gyroscopes are a pretty good proof that we don't live on a spinning ball. It doesn't change, fixed in space. Venom 6848. We don't need to factor in perspective for all the stars and planets, as we've landed craft on quite a few of them. No, you haven't. You've just got pictures of deserts. Timothy Stockman. One can measure the difference in distances between the top and bottom of suspension bridge towers to verify that plumb bob is not parallel. If we're on a... Have you ever gone and done that? Have you ever gone and done that? Now, if there is a difference between the two towers of a suspension bridge, well, if you're going to engineer something that's going to suspend something, then, you know, the more you can make it do that, the better, really. And a few inches of difference when you're talking about thousands of tons of steel being pulled and suspended. When when they build bridges, it's bit by bit. Whether it's the Channel Tunnel or everything has to be lined up level. When you survey, you don't take curvature into account when you're building a bloody bridge. God, we went through this years ago. I mean, it's just one of those things that you think about with when you're looking into flat Earth. Oh, they take curvature into consideration when they're building bridges, and you go and have a look, but you just think about and look at the way engineering is done. Sure, you might have a concept, that an architectural drawing that might take the Earth's curvature into account, which they never actually do, really. But in the real world, when it comes to building those bridges, it's down to, yes, the surveyors make sure everything's level and lines up. So if you're starting things from two ends, you build it bit by bit until you make sure it's level. You know, I've studied this. I've watched the 7 bridges being built in the UK and things. I've spoken to people surveyors who worked on these bridges. You know, it's just you know, when it comes to actually doing the project, you don't take curvature into account. It's silly. Right then, Timothy Stockman. Oh, I've done that one. Oh, well, hang on, let me carry on, because he makes some points. All right, well, yeah, back to your erroneous assumption about celestial objects. I have a challenge for you. Show me a flat Earth model which describes the position of Polaris in the sky, showing how its elevation above the horizon can be approximately equal to the. Yes, I've done a video about that. The flat Earth perspective model explained. I'm sorry if it's an hour long and a bit beyond your attention span, but it demonstrates in that how we can navigate, how the latitude lines were created as imaginary lines with the nautical miles based on Polaris, and how if you make these observations and you factor in perspective, you get a nice curve. It's not a curve on the Earth, it's a curve of perspective. So, you flat earthers defeat yourselves by restricting what evidence you will believe about. All you can say is it looks flat, but how do you measure that it's flat? Yeah, whatever. Logan Rilling, you can watch a rocket go into space. So, why would NASA waste all that money for a pointless trip? Well, yeah, they're paying people to. I mean, the NASA gets money from the government, from the taxpayer. And then they go and pay agencies to come up with. I mean, if yeah, just look at the way the military-industrial complex works. It could be. So the government agency dishes out these jobs to people in its favour, and so then what happens is a corporation charges. Say $10 for a 10 cents screw or nut or bolt or whatever, and then on the books they say, well, that cost $20. You know, so you have a small part, a standard part that gets made for a few cents, and then the price is inflated as it passes through the hands of the people involved. I mean, this is the way commerce and the relationship with the governments works. People have got to get your heads around this. You know, they're not doing anything for the public. They're doing it for themselves, and they're just marking up everything that they buy. Every deal that they make is a way to mark up the prices and make money and get us taxpayers to pay for it. You know, it's just a scam. And why can't people get there? I mean, and I see scams all the time right in here in Thailand. You wouldn't believe some of the people that, and it's confidence tricks. A lot of them are confident. You know, you give people the idea. There's, you know, the Nigerians come and tell people they got this ink. They show them these dollars covered in black powder or something, and then they've got to buy this special solution to wash off this powder from the dollars, and then they tell these guys, oh, I don't have any money right now. You've got to go and you've got to give me the money to buy the solution, but we're gonna wash $1 million. People get greedy and they fall for it. People are scammers. People will lie all the time, and you'll see it on these globe. I tell you, these globe globe defender channels. It's an excellent example of the extent people will go to, the lies they will tell to uphold a lie. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time doing something on some of those liars later on, those ones that have picked on me specifically. I don't usually get involved in this political tit for tat, but someone made a video recently using my stuff and then obfuscated and told an outright lie, so I'm coming for you when the time's right, when I've got time myself. Okay, so you can watch rockets go into space. So, right, okay. JB Smith, I would think looking at the stars at the zenith from both places on the Earth at the same time and then measuring the angle between those spots in the sky would be a good way to show that what is vertical at one place is 90 degrees different than the other. We do not have to measure any stellar yeah, okay. This is... Yeah. Again, this can happen on a flat plane. It doesn't have to be a globe. And in fact, this is how and why the false flat Earth thing has been created with the times of day and the where the sun is at its zenith at that particular time. Again, not factoring in perspective, but trying to use this external frame of reference and use trigonometry to do the angles to the sun, but forgetting again that it's, you know, even if you refer to timeanddate.com, for example, which seems to be very accurate for the most part, it's all based on observations made on the ground looking up. So the angles at which we look up from the horizon to a star or celestial object are not the same as what the angles you would get from a side-on view. It's very simple. Just got to understand that. That's why we always talk about perspective, because we're looking at perspective of the observer and the angles that you see from the horizon versus an external frame of reference and the angles that you would see from a side-on view, which are different to the angles you get as an observer. And that's how they translate perspective into an imaginary curve, because we're always seeing the Earth side-on as an observer. Yeah. In the globe Earth idea, it's always a side-on view of the globe Earth, because they've taken away the angles of perspective and then turned those into an imaginary curve with the side-on view. I'm not sure how you would pronounce this one, but listen up, you can deny it all you want, but you do in fact live on a globe. Oh really? In fact, there is vast evidence that supports it, but you choose to ignore it out of spite. No, I've looked at all the evidence presented, and when you look at the evidence, you realise that it's either been just interpreted as us being on a globe, or it's flat out faked. Especially, one or two pieces of footage of the ISS fakery should at least leave some questions in your mind. But I've seen it. I remember showing someone something funny happened on the way to the moon, and going to that point where they film the Earth through a round window, and for most people, if you show them that and they say, okay, it's food for thought. But if they're an avid globe defender, it just no, they will ignore that. They won't take it on board. So you're talking crap. Sundiver, scientifically as well as brain cells, you're also missing the letter C. Yes, okay, thank you for spotting my little typo there. Tony, oh no, Frio. Nick, have you learned nothing? You find two places on the same longitude several thousand miles apart, which you can verify the distance between them. Then on the day of oh bloody hell, the equinox at midday. Oh, did you know there is a lunar equinox as well? Yeah, looking at the sun doesn't prove anything about the shape of the Earth. You do not have to measure the distance to the sun, as only the angles are needed. Yeah. Oh God, it pisses me off so much when people just use the equinox, which is once a year, as some kind of proof. It's just the sun doing concentric circles, and it makes its way up and down as it does these concentric circles, and then it reaches a point where it's, it's spring, summer, whatever. Kenny Nackers, the sun takes 24 hours, so 6 hours of the sun at both points above your head. Simple. No. I swear you took a trip and never came down. Yeah, whatever. The opposite of up is down. Yeah. Cosmic Surfer, the vestibular system disproves globe Earth. Vestibular. I'll have to have a look into that, actually. Thanks for the heads up there. I need to do some homework. Ryan Q. Vincent, LOL, it is the simplest question that makes you pause and go, yeah, That's the idea, mate. Yep, it's just, I smiled while watching this video. It so reminded me of when I started looking into the shape and state of where we live. Thanks for doing this. Yes, it really is. It's one of those things you just, you think about, and then that was the point. You got it. Great. Nice one. Where were we? A chef, I'd travel with a gyroscope a given distance, north or south. Measure the tilt of it, if any, all the while checking if a ball and pancake being dropped at my arm level are going to my feet level. Doesn't even matter at which of the earth we start as origin, because the real difference would be lack of tilt on a flat and tiny tilt on a spherical earth. For the sake of argument, all measurements would have to be done on a level surface with a level camera. As simple as it gets while using only the objective we test Earth, a measuring device including modules making sure your data isn't faked or misrepresented, and a camera to document it. Okay, well, yeah, okay, but so basically you're saying that the difference is very difficult to discern. Again, I've travelled 10,000 miles, tried to see if there was a difference in the level. There wasn't. Merlin Joseph, yes, there are other ways. Seismic waves are one way. By the way, scientifically, spelled like that, yeah. Also, if you prove that we live on a sphere like the majority of the world accepts, yes, they accept it. Well, and the majority of the world, you don't know that. You only know what people in your own country might think. You probably live in the West. There are a lot more people in this world than live in the US or Europe, and they don't all believe in a globe. Then down doesn't need to be proven that down is towards the center. It's 100% given. Yeah, there you go. All right, it's a belief. You are all right. So yes, well done, Merlin. You kind of confirmed the belief bias there. Geometrically and physically, this is the only possibility. Yes, geometrically, yes. So I say, why use geometry to describe our Earth? Because you then are forced to have this idea that down becomes towards the center of mass, the alleged mass in a circle or a sphere. This is the only possibility. Yes, you're forced into that position. You should follow your own advice about acting civil in the comment sections. Yeah, I'm a mirror too. When people just come at me with abuse, then I will throw it back. If someone comes with a leveled response, even if they're a globe believer, but they're open to asking, they're asking the right questions and they're being level-headed, then I will respond in the same way. But anyone who comes here and just is ignorant, is abusive, is obtuse, then they will get the same kind of response from me. It's just the way it is. We're all people. So I can't bother with the rest of your comment there. Cell 666. Distance has nothing to do with orientation, and perspective has nothing to do with down. Yeah, whatever. Individual perspective. Clear, concise, to the point, and always very politely put. Okay, thank you. Cue the backwards troll commenters with no understanding of real scientific explanation, just an axe to grind, spot on. Anyone watching Phuket Words videos for the first time, pay close attention to the rhetoric being used on both sides, please. See if you can spot the gobbledygook. Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. There are some people that come along on the flat earth side as well that just they're not being so scientific about the whole thing either. So good point there, IP. Oxbow Spirit. This is a great exercise for the brain. I have looked at some of the documents, comments, and noticed that all of those that believe in a globe model are assuming from the start of their explanations. Absolutely, yeah, because again, you're forced to use this geometric model, or they are going off the calculated distance to the sun. Yep, as fact, absolutely. When the distance to the sun is all based off of an assumption from the start. Yes, absolutely, that's it. If you look into the flat Earth or the globe Earth or reverse engineer the globe Earth, that's what you'll find, that the whole heliocentric model is based on looking at the sun and making assumptions, and then everything has been built on those assumptions. Absolutely, spot on, Oxbow Spirit. Hopefully people will accept this challenge, start exercising their brain, and start to critically think about what is fact based on fact, and supposed to fact based on something. Okay, yes, kind of a little bit confusing use of language there, but yes. Yeah, the difference between fact and imaginary models. Rabbit stew. I quite like the way that you have asked this, but should not be asked only if globers or whatever you want to call them, me. How do you prove all downs are parallel on... No, see? Say, that's not the point. The model, the official model, accepted by most of the global population, is the globe. So that's what we're... And this is... whatever. Martin Pike, can't be done. Science doesn't prove things, especially not with a single observation. Yes, I'd agree. You don't make... one single observation isn't going to prove it either way. The best you can hope for is strong indication, which is, if constantly repeated by independent observers using different phenomena, will lead you to start accepting the original premise as fact. However, for your current challenge, I suggest... Your observation, you observe the stars, there we go, don't make any assumptions about their distance or the shape of the Earth, just measure the observed angle of their position above the horizon. The belt of Orion is a good choice because it is easily recognized and is visible both in the north and south of the equator at this time of year. You need at least 3 observations from widely separated locations, otherwise you can't differentiate between nearby stars on a flat Earth and distant stars on a ball Earth. Okay, but the more observations from more locations the better. Now plot the measured elevations assuming a flat Earth and see where the lines intersect. Again, you're going to be this is one of these things that's just subjective for each observer. Yeah, so again, what you might be trying to do there is put all these into an orthographic view, which can't really be done. You will get this mishmash of lines. I've tried it, because each observer has a different perspective, a unique perspective, so they won't line up. Krista Toll, even if I, for argument's sake, grant you that this isn't something that can be proven, I'm not saying it can't, just to be clear, granted, I have no immediate ideas on how, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Okay, I'm not sure why that would be relevant. Yeah, it's relevant because I'm trying to point out that there isn't any science or measurable proof of the globe from however long we've been told to believe it. Down being different for all parts of the globe follows from the globe being a, well, globe. It's not something that would have to be proven separately. What? Huh? No, again, you got a model which makes sense if you're on a circle, but to prove that that is our reality is a whole different kettle of fish. But seeing how our everyday observations match the globe model, I don't see... Oh, God, no. Again, we are taught to interpret things like sunrises and sunsets as because the Earth is a spinning globe. No. There's just one interpretation, which is ridiculous anyway. David, Reed, just out of curiosity, what is the diameter and circumference and thickness of your flat Earth? Is it in fact circular? How? Yeah, we don't know. Nobody knows. Yeah, so it's an ongoing investigation. Gear up. You know we live on a ball because it looks so flat. Oh crikey! Questions about science in the real world. Better give it a thumbs down and scarper. Whoosh. Okay, yeah. Brian Morton. Refer to the pole stars, of course. So easy, even a flat earther should get it in seconds. The North Pole, it will be directly above. Oh God, yeah, same stuff. Equator at 0 degrees. Yes, Brian. Tony Dixon, nice one. Okay, cheers. OLM, nice try, but the burden of proof is on you. No, it's not. No, just pizza dough, whatever. Yeah. Just heart. Molten iron core, magically moving magnet in the North Pole, magical anti-central. Yeah, that's right. It's all a load of bollocks. I love fantasy movies. That's where it's at. Where's the curve? Really? Take measurements from buildings 10 miles apart. One measurement from the bottom, from the middle, one from the top. If they are parallel, then the globe is absolutely busted. End of discussion. What the fuck is so hard to... Why is it so hard? Could put some type of post perfectly level for multiple miles. Yeah, it could be done. It could be done. These measurements could be made. Flat Earth data, they never remind themselves of exponential curvature. Yep. BM Furball, Pancake Hero, those are actually really good questions. The first assumption of how the down is down on both observer relies on gravity. No. Which I know you probably don't believe. I personally am trying to test gravity, yeah? Gravity's just weight. That's it. Test it all you want. If you want to find out if gravity exists as a force coming from the Earth, then just try and find gravity without using another mass. You can't measure gravity without having something to drop through the air, then it doesn't exist. Peter Smith, you have it wrong. Point it up. Get someone to point up another one up at a couple of 1,000 kilometers away, and measure the top distance at the bottom and the bottom distance. How can I do this scientifically and prove it? Maybe find a fixed point at a fixed time on the same time zone. Time zones are an artificial construct. Take a 30-yard light measurement of the sun's position at precisely midday. Go on, I dare you. Maybe you could find 3 or 4. Yeah. Suffering from lack of sleep here, with dealing with kids, lots of kids, and Gaia satellite. Look up what it does. Who's this? Cruiser Hog. Gaia satellite, look at what it does. We now know the stellar distances to 1.7 billion stars. And this instrument is so precise, after 2 measurements, it knew the directions every star in its expanding catalogue was travelling relative to the Earth. Yeah, right. It's all relative, yeah. So we're moving, but we're not. And it's got nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. Martin Gillett, yes, we all know you can draw lines on a model and make calculations. You do it all the time. Can we assume you won't do that anymore? Your criteria for celestial objects is bullshit. You can't make up your own rules for people to follow. Oh? Okay. They're not rules, they're just common sense if you want to make a proper observation. It's just, scientific to verify scientifically the measurements that anyone might be able to make, which they can't. You don't have to take this into account what you say. All you have to know is that when you look at the South Celestial Pole, same shit. Zach Sterling, sorry I was late, I was flying around the sun 80 times faster than a bullet. Joking, okay, great video, yeah. Okay, thanks. No fanfare, you're funny. Asking those guys for real science. I don't know how they're going to pull this one off without the use of a braille calculator. Okay, Paul Sturks, whatever. This is another guy who's made hit piece videos on me, obfuscating the eye level thing. I don't know, I should give you the time of day, really. Quite simple, you need to combine 2 obvious proofs. The observation that Polaris' angular height above the horizon matches your latitude. I explained exactly why. You've got to listen. This in itself proves we live on... No, it doesn't prove when we're on a ball. Okay, so you're coming from a standpoint that is just dogmatic. Oh boy, yes, but will they hear? Thanks, mate. No, they won't. You're right. They won't hear it. Yeah. Divergent droid. I keep going back to a gyroscope or one from a cell phone, either sitting still for 24 hours, yeah, or taking one on a plane across the country to show we don't measure the curvature. We should, yeah. Your experiment would force them to prove a sphere if they could pull it off, but that won't happen. Absolutely, yeah. So far we've seen in the comments section that there is no proof being offered up. If you could take 2 giant plumb bobs and start in the middle of a country and move them apart east and west and measure the angles of the lines, that would work. I don't see it happening either. Great video. Yeah, that's right. You should be able to physically do this, somehow find a way, but no one's going to do that. Okay, had a further interruption just now. Had to get the kids to school, so it's nice and light outside now. Missed the dawn chorus though. Cultusfit. I think that's how you say your handle. Actually, glad to see this particular chap. I presume you're a chap. Looking through some of my older content now. I've seen you've just started commenting recently, but now going back through older content, and at least someone who is trying, I suppose, to understand some of what's been said or done or observed in my videos previously. Still has arguments that come up, but they're getting softer. So I can see that perhaps this person is reaching some level of understanding where the flat earther is coming from. So fair shout to you for actually looking at it and trying to take it on board. That's all anyone can ask, really. Of course, it's never easy to try and digest this idea that goes against everything we've been taught. And of course, I didn't start making these videos until I'd done a lot of thought and research myself. Well, I think that goes for most flat earthers. So it's up to those people that come along and see these videos too. And that's exactly what I did. I heard or watched, well, heard I suppose, it was an interview with Eric DeBay. And Matt Powell as well. I watched one of his long things about flat earth, and Eric DeBay, I think pretty much on the same day, watched those two videos. Eric DeBay was on, he was being interviewed on Higher Side Chats. Very good interview. And that was it. I was off. The horizon rising to eye level thing just made absolute perfect sense to me. It's just something I just knew and seen myself. I remember, in fact, going to taking a trip to the US when I was about 16 years old. Very excited, very proud of myself for I was just going to stay with some family friends, but I was very chuffed that I was able to do this trip on my own without being accompanied, as it were. And I actively looked for the curvature. I was dying to report back that I'd seen the curve of the Earth from an aircraft, but I was very disappointed that I wasn't able to see the curvature. And I just remember that distinctly. It was one of those things I looked for when I was young. Never saw it. And I've never seen it since. And so all these things, I'm sure it's the same for anyone who arrives at certain conclusions about the way things are, is that there is a whole combination of experiences that you have throughout your life, and then somebody says something, or you have another experience that puts everything into place, and because of what you've learned in the past. So that's what it is. It's all about, it doesn't all happen at once. It's always a multitude of things that come together. So, anyway, this guy. So let's get this straight. You use trig when you think it's supporting flat Earth perspective, but when it's not allowed. Yeah, I mean, I've used trigonometry and geometry to try and show or demonstrate how these two things interchange, go together with the side-on view, and illustrate perspective. But then trigonometry is used for the angles, but it's also the same as geometry. I'm not sure why. Or I think you're just being a bit of a troll there. Oh my god. Right, didn't realise it was that long. But when you spout word salad and do things like drop soda cans to support a poor incomplete hypothesis, that is okay. Well, yeah, it's just trying to demonstrate. But a theory, which is something that has good testing and peer review and describes something that we witness observe, that is not okay. This leaves me very confused on what, if anything, actually qualifies for your challenge here. Well, if it's I've tried to be as straightforward as possible in the challenge, but here's my shot. We once again use the Cavendish experiment, right? Oh, forget that. That doesn't give you any angles, I'm afraid. So that's doesn't have any relevance to this particular thing. Oh dear. When we do the math, we will solve for the center of the object. We might want to know why, so we use predictive models to see what happens in a vector field of some number of uniform masses. We find it creates a sphere as vector possible and demonstrable. We will also find that it will have the greatest force towards the center of the collapsed object. I'm sorry. I mean, yes, I know vectors are circular, and this is where I understand that, you know, the whole theory of gravity is this is why a sphere is very handy for the mathematician, because you get these expanding vectors. You know, it makes it, and the inverse square law can be used to expand outwards from the center, and you can make your models on this. So he's talking about a more complex version of the Cavendish experiment. We try various objects of various masses and see if the changes in force is equal to the change in mass in relation to the equation F equals G equals GM1 M2. Yeah, see this part of the GM1 M2, when you use this equation for and then the R, you know, when you do the math, you actually take away one of those masses because you assume one is the cause. The Earth is causing the fall, so you end up with just left over with one mass. And okay, oh bugger, the R, okay, again assuming R. Sorry, this is very convoluted. As we do this, but it's basing its whole thing on you know, assumptions again, assumptions that you've got this force created from the center of mass, and that mass is spherical. It's just a load of bollocks. As we do this, we fabricate objects with equal distributed mass. We create objects that are not spherical or that have large mass cores slightly off center inside them. Complete the vector field equation for that object in relation to the modified Cavendish experiment's vector readings. We establish that the force then is applied to the center of mass. Earth has a nice mix of stuff, so it could be offset and all that. Okay, next. I'm sorry, it doesn't, you know, okay, this number one is basically based on this assumption of a center of mass creating a force. It doesn't happen. 2, getting into finding the levels without math or models. Very interesting and complex problem. Especially when I want to create something that the average flat earther would not complain that they can't observe or test. Ultimately, not because they really can't, but because they lack either the will to, or because they lack the intent. Oh, fuck off. You know, this is it. You're just coming from an assumed position that you're smarter because you've got these mathematical equations that you're very fluent in, more fluent than you are in English, it seems. And the flat earth, I mean, do you not see the work that flat earth researchers put in? This is it. You know, you numbskulls got to get off your intellectually lazy asses and actually, you know, I mean, one really good one was Mountains of Evidence for Flat Earth. I mean, the guy spent weeks or months hiking different hills and making observations and measurements to try and compare the forward-looking views with the side-on views of entire mountain ranges and things like that. And yes, he realised or confirmed for himself through his own due diligence that perspective affects the apparent size of mountains in a forward-facing view, but when you look at them side-on, they're all at their proper relative heights. This kind of thing. 3-4 years ago, people were racking their brains and trying to, balloon launches, laser experiments. We tried every which way, and really trying very hard to see if we could find any curve. It really did start out as this looking for the curve, just trying to find ways that are beyond this idea of Cavendish experiment. The Cavendish experiment. Oh dear. And looking at the stars. So I'm sorry, your assumption that we're all thick as shit doesn't bode well for me looking through the rest of your bullshit. So sorry. Right, colon. One question. Do you agree that the original pioneers who charted the oceans using a sextant did so by measuring the angles of the stars to their relative position to the Earth? Yeah. If that's how it was done, it makes sense and it works, as explained. If so, then the angular displacement of those stars proves the change in altitude and rotational position upon the Earth. If you concede that at sea level and any star except our own sun, which is too close that we are orbiting it, so its practical usage is purely for time and day, any other star is an awfully long distance away and not requiring measurement of distance. Oh really? Then a sextant plots your position on the Earth and down is below your feet. By the way, you're still a troll. I don't believe you think we live on a flat Earth. You're having a laugh at everyone who replies to you. No. Taking it very seriously. This is a very serious matter because I find that we are imprisoned in a mind matrix, and I've always been interested in trying to do my part to solve the problems that I see, whether it's fighting ridiculous wars, pollution, and all that stuff, and just watching people mindlessly get sidetracked by politics and mass media and entertainment, and it just drives me up the wall that people are so easily misled and do not think for themselves and will side with one political party or another, and the whole thing. It's just no. So I'm not taking the piss. I'm very serious about this. This is all I'm trying to do is get people to think for themselves. I don't have any model. I don't have any, I try my best not to have any beliefs. Of course, we carry them with us. This is baggage that we carry throughout our lives, and my personal mission is to discard as much baggage as possible that are built up over the past in my life, and try my best to alleviate myself of the baggage so I can be more clear about what the difference between knowledge and belief, and then when we, if only everyone could be trying to do that, and it's just an example of a news story I heard just the other day about in India. There's this big thing about some women went to a shrine or a temple where their women aren't allowed to pray. It's become a whole political issue. There's people rioting in the streets about this, and the police have had to use tear gas, etc. I mean, look how messed up that becomes over this fighting over religion and whether men or women should have the right to visit a temple, and this is all centered on beliefs and tradition and culture, and it's silly. It's silly that that it should have such a huge effect on people. and they can't just be a bit more or less zealotous about it. Yeah, it's just silly. Yeah, so no, we're all victims of personally held beliefs which become our baggage, and all of us should be It is a constant battle with the ego, and you might think you're a good person because you follow a particular religion, whether you're a Christian, a Hindu, or Buddhist, or whatever it might be. If you have that belief that you are a person who exemplifies that religion, then you're probably a zealot. Yeah. So the middle path. This is if there's one religion I adhere to, but it's not a religion. It's Buddhism, because it's about the mind. It's the science of the mind, and it's about constantly training your mind to be aware of the things that influence your thoughts and behaviors, your reactions, and to realize them and put them aside and not be affected by them. And this takes constant vigilance, because anything can happen to you anytime. Someone can say something to you. You can just think of something, and it changes your physical being, and our thoughts in that way. Our minds and bodies are very much connected, so we react. We do say and think things because we're reacting to them. So my personal mission, again, is to follow these Buddhist principles as much as possible, in just recognizing how being an observer of the self, and as long as you practice that, and this is what it comes down to with the flat Earth, the globe Earth thing. Just keeping in mind that everything we talk about is an observation made by us, but then you've got to just take yourself out of yourself and observe yourself as an observer, and you realize so much more about what's actually going on. You look at it all more objectively, and you see your subjective reactions to it. So I'm not a troll. I'm just trying to get people to wake the hell up. Mr. Colon. Right, Dave Patterson. You can do this for yourself. Do this yourself. Get 2 friends, put yourself at the equator, 1 friend at the Tropic of Cancer, 1 at the Tropic of Capricorn. Make sure you're all on the same longitude, on the same day. Each of you will then measure from a level surface the angle to the sun at noon. If the sun is just a few thousand miles away, you can, on a flat Earth, calculate the distance. 2/3. Yeah, again, perspective is going to affect. Again, this is what messes up the official flat Earth model, with the idea that the sun is 3,000 miles away, etc. That is based on doing this kind of trigonometry, but again, it's ignoring perspective of the observer. It's simply not something that we can really fully work out. You'll never get accurate, concrete figures in this way. So, been there, seen it, done it. Mr. Patterson. Lish B. There is no original down. Pook hole. Thank you. Whatever is under your feet is down. By the way, we are still waiting for you to scientifically prove a flat Earth. Good luck with that. Yeah. Whatever. Brian Fletcher, Phuket word, you should have stopped at 6 minutes. Patronizing only invokes scorn, because many put defending their perceived image above the factual subject matter. I admit you have a good point there. I should maybe have not. Okay, Antonio does it more so, not unlike many that bring in religious references. Completely scatters the topic. The correct use of the term sapien used. Okay. He knows what I'm getting at. I fully realize it's tempting to do so, a phenomenon I refer to as psychic gravity. Easy to get pulled back into that field of believer energy. Same reason why a domesticated animal is attacked by its own species when released to the wild. It's a group consciousness thing. Okay, yeah, point taken. Cool. Nicely verbalized there. Jim Merrilees, yes, we can prove down is down on all points of a spherical Earth. It's called gravity. Oh, nah, I can't be bothered. Critical thinking. The only way I believe we live on a globe Earth is when someone can explain to me, when traveling from one end of the Earth to the other end of the Earth, why the plane does not go upside down. Yeah? It doesn't. Well, everybody knows that Alain Guillot, everybody knows that redshift is equal to the cube of the radiosity of the inverse squared prominence of the hill next door. Therefore, the Earth is flat. That's kind of funny. I'm not sure what you're getting at, though. Randy Wilson, maths proves it many, many times. Oh yeah, maths is not real science, so you can't use that. You have to use your science of perspective. So no matter what we show you, you will just dismiss it as junk science. Well, you haven't attempted to say or do anything apart from, yeah, perspective. As I said, perspective uses geometry. Glenn Harrison, anyone with an open mind who's looking for scientific proof will only have to read, or should I say study carefully, the work of Gerard Hickson, which shows that the distance of the stars and planets, and indeed the moon, determined in the 18th and 19th century is scientifically impossible, and the credibility of modern astronomy should be seriously questioned. Modern astronomy is a belief system based on dogma, CGI and photoshopping, and is nothing more than deeply entrenched conceptual ideas of the human mind. I pretty much agree with you there, Glenn. Maybe I need to do some more homework on Gerard Hickson, but well said. Ryan Q. Vincent, Phuket Word, we took your pristine comments section and turned it into a churned up mess dealing with the trolls and globe enthusiasts. However, I had so much fun today. We have a lot of answers to the globe enthusiast responses, vastly different than a couple of years ago. Again, thanks for the question in the video. I've been working for years on those and other questions. I learned from many sources, including yourself. Was nice to explain my current understanding of where we live. Was a good day. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Baked beans. If the Earth is a globe and I travel in a straight line along the equator, I will eventually end up at the starting point. Yes. Again, if the Earth is a globe, that is what I would observe. Yeah. And you know. Do it. Just actually go out and do it. Don't ask questions like that. Go out and find out for yourself. Things don't change, really. The globe, the flat Earth, that's the thing people have got to understand. All the geometry. Oh, I can't be bothered. It's just a silly question. Alan Jones, or in other words, prove the Earth is a sphere. Great. That's got us precisely the square root of nowhere. Okay. Mendel, I think I have an answer to your challenge. Since your challenge is really about angles, we don't need to measure any distances. We'll also rule out perspective distortion. Okay, will you? Oh dear. The measurement is... Oh, okay, I did have a brief look at this, and to be honest, it's going to be very, very difficult to go through it right now, and obviously people are welcome to go and have a look at this, but it's quite ingenious. I'm really chuffed that this person has taken the time to think about it. It's really good that someone, this is an excellent thought experiment that is an idea of how we can do something practically. But it's quite difficult to understand exactly what. But it does involve different locations, measuring plumb lines and angles, etc. But we're still left with the same problem. I think I did reply. Okay, I applaud your creativity. Okay. Yeah, I'll just quickly read my response. I applaud your creativity. It's nice to know you're trying to think of a new approach. I'm still trying to picture exactly what the setup you propose is. I will read through it a few times for your info. For me, Venus is the first star to appear after sunset every evening. Yeah, I see it every dark. The sun sets and then boop, Venus appears, and I see the stars across the sky pretty much in a straight line, east to west. Did I do that? Whatever. Depends which way you're looking. Where was I? Although closer to the sunrise horizon, I see more of an arc. You may be interested to know that I see the same stars every night. Yeah. Excuse me. This is another one I noticed. That to me totally debunks the heliocentric model, because although you can't see this in the West, in Europe or something, I see the same stars every night. Impossible if we're facing opposite directions 6 months apart. Okay, so I haven't seen these responses since then. From Mendel, Phuket Word, thank you for your praise. I know my words are difficult to understand at times. I wish I currently had a setup that allowed me to produce videos. I can probably upload some diagrams from my moving house analogy. Wow, okay. Again, I think my response was basically that ultimately we end up you're ending up looking at the stars again, which you know, again, you're going to assume that these down lines become angles. It still goes off the same premise we've always had, that looking up at the stars proves that down becomes different, and that's you're not going to really get results that determine a globe. Again, it's all perspective, and flat, globe, whatever, is going to be very difficult to define either way. But Mendel, I will look. You see, and this guy here, it's likely Phuket Word will ignore you as it doesn't support his pseudoscience. Piss off! I'm not. You know, I'm happy to think about these things and wonder if they're possible, but I also will see the issues in trying to. Okay, thank you, Mendel. My experience is that Phuket Word does not ignore me. He does have to deal with a huge number of comments. True, he can't respond to all of them. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Mendel. That's very nice of you. I find that Phuket Word is a good observer, is well versed in the GEFE dialogue, and can spot bad arguments and trolling. I'm ashamed for the things some GEOs say and does not engage with them. I believe he will accept only limited amounts of mathematics, especially geometry, and does not trust them unless their relation to reality is firmly demonstrated. He also does not trust strangers' observations. Okay, cool. Yeah, you see, this is fine. You know, I'm absolutely open to constructive criticism and discourse. Yeah, to arrive at something that's more of a mutual understanding or answer. So I'm happy to enter into discourse like this, but my time is very limited. I've got a large family and a huge number of trolls to deal with. But Mendel is someone I would take the time to converse with, because he's approaching it from a diplomatic and you know, with a good disposition there. So I'm going to give you a heart straight up, and I shall get back to you on that one, Mendel. Okay. Right. Sortius. There are no working flat Earth model. Right. Fuck off. Can't be bothered. Ryan Q. Vincent, okay, we've kind of dealt with you. You've said some stuff already. Just to remind people, not one globe enthusiast that has been here today has proved any useful information. That's true. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, giving you a thumbs up there. Alain, fancy fonts will not help you. We're reaching the bottom of the barrel here. Whatever. Paul, if the Earth were truly a ball, none of us would still be on it. That's true. Sergey, if the Earth spins, then the answer might be found in gyro that is put on the equator. In 6 hours there must be a drift shown, I think you're supposed to say, by the gyro axis of 45 degrees, but it doesn't happen in reality. Absolutely. People have tested this, they've tried it, doesn't happen. Scott Merrow, hey Scott, nice to see you in the comments there. Long-term supporter there, and helps to put trolls right. Science is suffering because all their dupes are busy trying to make us believe in their fairy tales. Yep. Shouldn't you geniuses be off somewhere trying to cure cancer, stop climate change? And then there's the ball-hugging normies who can't get off flat earth jock. Never mind the truthers who say they want to solve our government problems, but only after everyone believes in the globe cult. Globe trolling must be profitable. Good, well said, Scott. Nice one. Dan, shelter plumb is 90 degrees from level. Yes. Yes. That is an absolute fact. The surface of the sea is level, so that means all 90-degree angles are plumb and parallel with each other. This can only work on a flat surface. The angle would constantly be different. Yeah, that's basically it, Dan. Shelter, yeah, that's how it is. That really is how it is. Mikhail Voropev, I'm not sure how you say that. The constellations in Australia are completely different from those in the northern hemisphere. Well, north of the equator, yes, it's just a distance thing. This is direct proof of different ups and downs on a sphere. No, it's not. David, there are some issues with the question, one being no calculations. We often need to use calculations to determine measurement. For example, if I wanted to calculate the circumference of an area of the circle shown in this video, I would use the appropriate calculation. This is just a fact of life and science, so this restriction is unacceptable. The other issue is, of course, that I would start from acknowledging the Earth as a sphere, as this is well established, and work from there. That is the problem, David. People work off this assumption that the Earth is a sphere, and of course they can get all the results they want. If you start with a circle and you draw some tangent lines and you do the angles and things, of course everything's going to fit your model that you've presupposed. But when you get out into the real world and try it, it's a bit different, David. Stephen Olan, you say that you understand, then show that you do not. There is not top. Yes, wherever you are on a circle, you're always on top, okay, Stephen? Just a me Smith. Speaking of down and up, let's suppose you dig a hole from the North Pole to the South Pole. At what point does digging down to the South Pole become digging up to the South Pole? Yeah. Scott Merrow, down is up and up is down for two people at imaginary antipodes. South is in all directions from our planes. Centre. Okay. Stashman, another question. How is it going from left to right, going down, or left to right? How is it going from left to right? From right to left, going down? Not sure what you mean. Christina Graham, nothing in the sky could ever prove the shape of the ground. Yes, correct. Even if anyone could prove the distance of the sun, moon, and stars, and that they ended up under our feet at the other side of whatever we live on, hypothetically the sun, moon and stars could be wrapped in a sphere instead of the Earth's and the Earth. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we don't know. We don't know. You're right. This is it. This is the whole thing with models. It's whatever we see in the sky is an interpretation that can be made in many different ways. The problem we are having here is proving the shape of what's under our feet and still taking globe facts into consideration like gravity and relativity. I never looked too far into the Theodolite app, that one YouTube flat earther claimed to debunk the globe. Has anyone else? Okay, really good point, Christina. Okay. Looking into it and seeing what can be found out. There, scientific evidence from a ball lover. Sam Harvey, I guess working out the angle from vertical to Polaris won't satisfy you. Nope. How do you think, Kenny Knackers again, how do you think a water level works? The water goes down. Kim Dawes, now that's fighting fire with fire. Great thinking and better putting it into words. I would enjoy the show in the comments. Hopefully a shovel won't be needed. Well, Kim, this is us going through it, and lots of shit shoveling going on here. Gabe Mayberger, maybe. One can always use the cosmic microwave background as an absolute frame of reference to tell you have moved 90 degrees in latitude. Right. Glowduck, but Newton told us about gravity and the Greek dude Eratosthenes proved the Earth was a globe. Ha ha ha, blah blah blah, great video. Okay, yep, there you go, it's yeah, you said it. Stashman again, if you place a pole perpendicular anywhere on this ball, isn't the center, isn't it the center? Unless you mark a specific spot on the center, everywhere is center on a ball, as long as you... A disc, on the other hand, has only one center spot. Yes, you're correct there, but yeah. Virendra Moore, simple yet globe busting. Okay, cool, glad to see it that way. Gordon Brooks, you could measure the angle between two plumb lines that are, say, a mile apart or so and see if they're parallel. Seems to be, to me, someone already did that. No idea who did that, but as far as I'm aware of, that's not been done, and no measurements exist there. Let's just see, did he actually make... yeah, I mean, I've already had the to and fro with him here, and calling me juvenile. Yeah, I just said, oh, bugger. Ah, what happened there?
That you must.
Sorry. Back down to Gordon. Where are you? Gordon. You see how much work's involved in actually responding to these comments? I mean... where are we? Right, Gordon. Yeah, I said, so you just go ahead and produce these 90-degree differences. It seems no one can do that. I think so apparently that's juvenile, to actually ask someone to go and do that. You are a juvenile person going around proclaiming that there is no evidence of a curve, and then when presented with a method, yes, yeah, fine. Then the method, great. I've just outlined the method in the bloody video. But has anyone actually done it? Oh no, you have to directly observe 90 degrees, and I'm not going to even propose a way to do that. I'm just going to brush off any evidence that doesn't match my silly narrative. We haven't produced any evidence. Nothing, Gordon. Just rhetoric. Logosis? Phuket, how do you measure that boiling water is at the right temperature to boil eggs fast? Do you always put a thermometer into water, or do you just use the concept of water boiling at about 100 degrees? Again, measurements. Yeah, no, I think I replied to this, and yeah, the natural physics of water, frozen or boiling, gives us the start and end point for measuring. So when we start at 0 and end at 100, making it easy to divide it into segments. Is that the same as the physical Earth? No, we draw a circle and divide it into 360 degrees. The circle knows nothing of this, it's just our way of transferring information. As I said, it all works fine as a model or an illustration. Does it relate to actual Earth? No, it relates to our perspective, looking into the sky with goblet eyes. And yeah, it gets back to me with some more gobbledygook about water freezes at whatever Kelvin. Yeah, and it's just measurements that we've determined from. Again, it just goes off. It doesn't produce nothing to do with this actual topic. So, sorry, mate. That's what you're getting from me. Richard Murphy, get a GPS receiver or a smartphone. Go to Greenwich in London and check your longitude. You will find it to be ground. Yes. This is your starting reference. Up angle. Yes. Longitude is simply the angle between the plane of your position with respect to the center of the ellipsoid and the plane of the Greenwich meridian with respect to the center of the ellipsoid. Take a walk a few miles to the. Are you going to tell me that it's just you get North Sea, then walk a few more miles to the east until you find yourself in Amsterdam. Check your longitude again, and you will find it's around 5 degrees east. This is how you're up, essentially a line passing through your position to the up. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we know that. Yeah. Okay. So the GPS is just it's just plugged in. It's a coordinate system that's again based on the long lat lines that are based on this observation of Polaris. Again, it doesn't prove that down becomes is towards the centre of an alleged spherical Earth. Okay? Yes, Richard, I understand all that. I don't know why people assume that we don't understand. Oh gosh. We're not that stupid. Risky Poodles, reality rules. It does. Jeff Dumas, they can't even show curved water over a 4-mile distance. That's right. Which should be pretty easy to do, which they would do regularly in high school science classes anywhere if they could. Absolutely, yeah. They'd go out and here we go. Here's how you measure the curve. This is what you do. Boop, boop, this view, that view. There it is. There's a curve. This is what we're constantly asking people to do. Yes, but it is a fact. If it is curved, but it is a fact. In their minds, the stars are trillions of miles away. I wonder what magical real-world instruments they use to measure those angles and distances. Exactly. Yes, I tell you, if they can measure the distance to stars, it should be pretty ding-dang easy to measure curved water over a few measly miles. Absolutely. I'd like to see the instruments that humans can make to accurately make adjustments to the billionths of degrees. Yeah, that takes some pretty fine adjustment, and who are the humans who can make such adjustments? Laughable. And how far have the two things, being object they are measuring, to moved? And in which direction has it moved? And how fast did it cover the known depth? Yeah, great. It's really good. Yes, Jeff, you get it. We get these so-called proofs about parallax and all this being measured and very fine instruments. Yeah, none of which we can actually confirm for ourselves or be shown in high school science classes. FE research it for you globules out there. Take an apple, place it about a mile from you. Now from this distance, please PLZ determine weight, size and what's in the core of the apple from the distance. Please do feel free to use any known apparatus known to mankind. If you can't do that, how can you do that to, let's say, Uranus? Much love and peace, my friend. Yes, you're absolutely right. You know, we got this assumption about the composition of the planets and things like that without being able to look inside them. It's all just theories and assumptions and ideas. Yeah, that's right. Mark of Melbourne. Everyone knows you can physically measure a curve. You just can't do it on the Earth because it's too big. Ballers can't measure. Chris, whatever that is. Okay. Count Dimitri. Here is an easy challenge for flat earthers. Please measure the circumference of the ice wall. Bloody hell. Graffili? Just a quick question to you asked to factor in perspective into visualization. How? Yeah, think about it. POS, it's not even possible. Keep going with this idea, Nick, and don't let them push back. That guy. These globe-tired comments are so good. Drop a hammer, it's going to the centre of the earth. Unreal. Yeah, you know, people assume that you drop something and it's going to the centre of a spherical earth. It is assume the sphere to start with. Yeah. The Irish King. When you're talking about actually calculating distance accurately and you're talking about things that are so far away that you can't see minute changes, how is it possible to get accurate measurements even to the nearest mile? Our eyes and even the cameras that you use to zoom into object on the sea that have yet to go over the horizon are not sensitive enough to see minute changes from the distance we're talking about. What's your point? Yeah, I mean, again, people say the Earth's either so big that you can't see the curve, or these things are too small to notice. So you know, you just have to believe that they're there. Adrina, one in. First of all, the only reason globe defenders often say that flat earth believers don't understand what down means is because some flat earth believers put tin cans on tables and tilt the table so that the can rolls off. I think that was me, and claim it's proof that the earth isn't a globe. Observations like that prove a lack of understanding of what down. Yeah, so okay. For the record, we understand that dropping something on the earth or even trying to get water to stick to the outside of a ball while we are on the earth might seem a tad stupid, because it might seem that we're ignoring the idea that the earth is so big and it's the earth's gravity that is affecting everything and pulling everything down locally. We get it. It's just a way of asking you to try and you can scale. The thing is, you can scale this thing up as much as you like and you'll never get You'll never. The only way you can is to imagine gravity is to try and everything has to be planet-sized, but no one has any. For example, water always goes down a curve. Yes, it always flows. So, at what point does water not flow down a curve? Does it depend on the observer height? Of course it doesn't. No, it should be something that's fixed and physical and should be demonstrable and should have a mathematical description for it. But no one can come up with that. You ask someone at what point water doesn't flow around a curve of the Earth, they can't tell you. They just say it has to be planet-sized. So, second of all, flat Earth believers need to explain exactly how to factor in perspective when making observations. Yes, everyone knows things up here. Yeah. Everyone knows, and there are formulas for angular size reduction. Yes, and it's geometry. It is geometry. But you always forget to take into the consideration the fact that things rise to eye level too, because you forget that the surface is in the way. My answer to your original question does concern observing the stars, Polaris to be exact, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, you're talking about X6, yeah. Yeah, same thing, normal thing, yeah, we know all this. But you're saying, well, this observation matches the globe 100%. It doesn't match the flat Earth whatsoever. It does, I've shown it, talked about it, demonstrated it. Felix Stuber. Why do we always have to prove things you simply do not understand? No, we understand it. I'm thinking, same stuff. Observe Polaris. We understand it, but we also understand that it's an interpretation that you're making. So you get off your assumptions and get real. Reuben Cohn, hilarious. Why don't flat earthers prove the Earth is flat instead of whinging at everyone else who asks us to inform them? No, we're just trying to encourage you to see if you can actually prove for yourselves the belief that you live on a spinning ball, which is physically impossible. You can't. Stringer News. I shall call this one Down syndrome. That's quite clever. It's all nonsense and ridiculous demand. Gravity has nothing to do with the centre of circles, so that is not an accepted fact. As You Wish is a globe troll. The most obvious way would be to look at image series from the Himarai 8 satellite. Ah, dear. Okay. Obviously, this is something that looked at when researching flat Earth, and you see that it's just a composite image. And those images from the Himawari 8 satellite, supposedly out there a million miles away from Earth to look at the weather, all it is information from weather radar on the Earth fed into a central computer, and CGI is created. I mean, weathermen on the TV have been doing this since the 80s and the 90s, right? They stand in front of a green screen and they do all this, and the clouds are moving about from some computer program that's put the data together, and that's it. And that satellite, I mean, if they were out there sticking a satellite a million miles away from Earth, then give us some shots of the stars and the sun and the moon. You never see that, do you? Oh dear. You've got to use some discernment. Got to think about how it's possible to create these images of Earth from space. And think about how you would do it if you're going to pull it off. Imagine how much they're charging to have this satellite, maintain the satellite, and all they've got to do is just keep feeding this information from the radar around the Earth into this. Had a quick interruption there from the missus. Right, so As You Wish. Sorry, you're not providing any kind of proof, just an appeal to authority. Mikhail Voropev again. Since my previous comments turned out to be too difficult for a comprehensive reply, I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. It seems both sides agree that Polaris stays to a high position at the same place, assuming the globe and that Polaris is much farther than the Earth's diameter. The observed angle of Polaris above the horizon is simply equal to the observer's latitude. I got your comment. Here is my challenge to flat earthers. I will pay $1,000, no, euro, I don't have 1000, but euro, to the person who presents a consistent flat earth model capable of explaining and predicting the position of Polaris, i.e. Oh dear. Well, you can just hand over the euros if you like. Because the whole point here is that the observations don't change. And it's like the observations are there. And it's flat. Love rules. No need to take this out of the education. Need to take this out of the education category. For somebody who believes that the horizon rises to eye level, shouldn't be teaching nothing. Go outside and look. The surface always rises to eye level. Now, again, just for the record, the horizon is something that appears on the surface when we are close enough to the surface to see it, and the angle of incidence at which light is reflected into our eyes becomes too shallow for us to see much further along that surface. So there is a line that appears on the surface which is called the horizon, but it does actually appear below eye level, and then you've got this band of convergence or the vanishing point which is at eye level. Yeah, so I hope that's clear. I've demonstrated it in various videos, but so if you want to talk about the horizon line, which is this line where we stop seeing everything on the surface, but yes, it is below eye level, but it's the vanishing point band of convergence that is at eye level, and the higher up you go, of course, the less distinct everything becomes. I've shown this. I've shown this so many times. I don't know why people can't just take it in and check it off the list. This is why I've done 600 videos, mostly about perspective and the horizon. And it just started as my own experiments, making my own observations to see what could or couldn't be proved. And it's just, the surface appears to, you stick a camera on a table, and the table will appear to rise up to the camera's eye level. And then people come back with, why don't the bottom of bottles disappear across the bottom of across a table? Oh. Drives me nuts. Because you're just not thinking, not able to. Outside conditions are very different, and you look across a rugged surface, and there's something very small, a small bump or a piece of gravel or a wave across that surface will cause the bottom of something to appear to disappear. Oh dear. I've even done it with a lighter across a flat playground. It's just... Right, David Brisbane. Oh, did I miss one there? Glenn. Yeah, Glenn Ward. What causes it to fall at a 90-degree angle to the horizontal? Why not any other angle? David Brisbane. I actually remember being told the Earth was round. 2 dimensions are easier to deal with than 3 dimensions when you are very young. When I was 4 years old at school, Glasgow, Scotland, my class and I were stunned. We laughed even at such an absurd idea. Yeah, because at that age you realise it is ridiculous. Oh dear. There was a discussion about the shape of the Earth could be. Well, the only shape others considered was flat. The teacher pointed out the logical absurdity of this shape, as the seas would all flow off the ends of the Earth. So all of a sudden, a globe can hold the water, but a flat Earth can't hold water. Everything would fall off the edge. Okay, this seemed to convince a lot of people that it was not flat. No discussion about a possible ice wall holding back the water was entered into, most likely to ensure the children were disabused of the idea that the Earth was not flat at all costs, as there is no point wasting time discussing facts that are not true. Now, a young child, when faced with 2 choices only, and one of them was absurd, would automatically conclude that the Earth was round. No need to say spherical, it just complicates things. However, I and several others in class were not totally convinced. We said that some people on this round Earth would be upside down, and that sounded absurd to us, but in kids' language, of course. Then gravity was introduced a little bit later. Yeah, all kids intuitively understand gravity. No, they don't. You drop something heavy and it falls straight to the ground. Well, yes, in that respect, yes. It behaves like this everywhere you have been as a kid. This was proposed as the mechanism that made sense of people being upside down in Australia. Yeah, you see, they've just taken this fact that heavy things will fall and said that that means that they fall all around a globe Earth. Many of us were still not convinced, although the authority figure, the teacher, was telling us that the Earth was round and we wanted to believe her. Some of us were still not convinced. Two things convinced me in the end. The sun and the moon looked round. Very clever use of the word round by the education system. And the thought experiment where I walk from Scotland to Australia. Yes, I know you can't actually do this, but does a kid know this? And if you believe gravity always points down, then by the time you get to Australia you would be upside down but feel right side up. It is that simple, even for a 4-year-old kid, to convince of the possibility of the Earth as a ball. The spinning part was never difficult for me to accept when I was young. Consider the two possibilities you faced. There are actually 3, but I won't discuss the third as it was not discussed at the time. Either each is spinning and the objects are in so far away in bloody hell away in the sky that they appear to whiz past you, or the Earth is motionless and all many objects in heaven, unimaginable number for a kid who has just realized he can count to over 100, are circling the Earth in precise formation all day and night. On the balance of probability, which is just a feeling from me at the time, I thought it was easier to believe the Earth rather than the heavens were spinning. Not entirely scientific for believing the Earth is spherical and spinning at the age of 4, but far more credible than the reasons the adult flat earthers espouse for why they believe the Earth is flat. Okay, you actually made some good points there about how we are led to be forced into appearing to conclude for ourselves that, oh, it must be a sphere. So, yeah, but again, you basically just used thought experiments to confirm, and again, it is, to be honest, it's intellectual laziness if you are not prepared to think any more about it and just accept that, okay, that's a good enough explanation, I'll go with that, rather than actually trying to really produce any scientific proof. So, bit of a shame there. You kind of have illustrated and demonstrated, the what actually happens as to change our understanding of the true nature of physics when we are kids, and then slowly have our minds changed and forced into accepting that we live on a globe, because it just makes sense, doesn't it? George Holloway, how do you explain why down on a sphere is towards the centre of a circle? You haven't mentioned the word gravity. No. So what principle are you appealing to when you claim that you understand the concept of down on the globe Earth model? What do you think is determining the direction of down? What is the mathematical effect of perspective upon observations? Can you quantify it for us? Yes, geometry. Oh dear, peer review papers. Oh dear, dear, dear. Because you claim that someone would have to factor in perspective if they are to appeal to a measurement of celestial bodies, then I think it's reasonable for you to provide references. Yeah, just go and look it up. Do your research. Yeah. Frank Wonder, in the globe Earth reality, the Foucault pendulum is proving that. Oh God. Okay, again, okay. At least it's an opportunity to mention that the Foucault pendulum, which is a farce. The idea is that if you have a Foucault pendulum on the equator, it shouldn't do circles. It would just go backwards and forwards in a straight line. There are no Foucault pendulums set up on the equator. It's just a model that's done with an assumption. So, when people bring that up as proof, I want to slap my forehead. It's just ridiculous. It's not something that's ever been properly done. Perplexer, we all know that no matter what explanation and proof anyone brings, you won't believe it or will reject it no matter what. No, no, no. I'm going through all these and so far, no one's come up with anything solid or scientific to verify the claim. How do we know that? Because the real world is already full of proof that the Earth is a sphere, and you flatheads categorically reject it. What proof? And yeah, again, you know, we look at the evidence, and the evidence is this got so many holes in it, it wouldn't stand up in court. What is ultimately the best and simplest proof of the shape of the Earth? A photo of it. Well, guess what? We have it, and you simply reject it, you flatheads. No, it's been studied, you know, the blue marble and all that stuff, it's all been thoroughly examined, and the only... I can't be bothered. This is the thing that people go through. We went through this years ago. Naja, B76. It's incredibly simple. Was done many centuries ago. There we go. Polaris, latitudes. Yeah, same shit. Different comment. Dave Brisbane. More nonsense. Alright, forget that then. 180 degrees. To prof the globe. Build a high tower at point A and a high tower at point B. I think I know what you're going to say. From the top of the towers you hang down a line with a heavy load on the plumb line. Now one can measure with a laser if the lines in fact is the same distance from each other at the top of the bottom. Yeah. If we live on a globe, the bottom must be closer to each other than the top. Okay. If the lines is the same distance at the top of the... Yeah, okay. So, no, that's great. Sorry for my spelling skills. No problem. Has it been done? No. Eduardo Paloma. Explain this to me. No, I can't be bothered. Timothy Stockman, you must prove that you can determine the distances to the stars, yes? Or at least estimating which way, in such a way that you can show that any uncertainty will have an insignificant effect on your results. But of course, this logic is way too advanced for... Fuck off. What the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, great handle. How are you supposed to factor in perspective different people will see if different ways, so people will come back with different conclusions? Your challenge is invalid. Yeah. Alex K, I'm getting a bit bored now because we've gone a long way through the comments and no one's come up with anything original. Apart from Mendel there. The only person in this entire comment section worth conversing with, who's not quite a flat earther but has got some good thought experiments going on. Alex K, the compass should be proof enough that we do not live on a ball. Does it point to the top of the ball at its strongest magnetic attraction? Arrow, yep, absolutely. Yeah, I looked into that and you're absolutely right. It's just, yeah. Jellybeard, Sydney, Australia to Santiago, Chile, direct flight. Oh, God. Whatever. Ruddy Muddy. Place a 10-meter pole on the equator, perpendicular to the ground. Okay. At a time, so you mean stick a pole in the ground, yeah? At a time in which it is directly beneath the sun. Yeah, okay, because this is another Eratosthenes experiment. Another 10-meter pole at the North Pole. Check the shadow. Local sun, flat surface, all possible. Bugsy, first I will assume we agree that the North Star is... Okay, North, okay, you pretty much look straight... Alright, yeah, okay, yeah. It's the same old thing. As you wish, again, can't be bothered. Mikhail Voropev, okay. 2 days... Hey, look at this demand. 2 days and no reply to my comment. Bugger off. I'm a busy man. True Laserlight, I see what you're trying to do here, but it fails out of the gate. Okay, well, forget it then. Joy Clayton, you have a wonderful style. I think it would have to be done at the same time. Is that true? So 2 people... okay, yeah, thank you, Joy. But yeah, something along those lines, yes. But yeah, again, looking to see if there's any way that people can come up with... It is difficult, isn't it? It's tough to come up with a way that can be scientifically proven. Eduardo again, from what perspective do we speak? Of the real perspective or one invented by... forget it. When I see so many answers from young people who defeat the challenge... They defeat the challenge, do they? robustly despite Phuket babbling nonsense and hiding. Well, I'm not hiding, I'm out here in public, showing my face. Makes me think how much flat earthers have done for science, because in the process of proving them completely wrong or replying to their challenges, whatever. Bill Palmer, forgot to mention that no proof provided will be sufficient. No proof has been provided. Okay, not directly related Phuket word, but if I'm not mistaken, you believe in a flat disk, sun, and self-illuminated moon? Nope. I don't know what they are. I have a simple experiment for you to do that will prove the flat disk theory wrong. Tape a paper plate to your ceiling and notice how it will look like a perfect circle when directly overhead. Stand on either side of the room and notice how it will appear to be elliptical. Yeah. Okay. Ashley Taylor, moon landings were faked. They certainly were. Raza Snowfire, if gravity is caused by pulling too large, I think you mean TWO, large objects, then we should be pulled slightly off kilter in presence of huge mountains, no? Yeah, kind of, that would be something that you could associate with the idea of gravity. Martin Joseph, reading some of your replies to comments, you're confusing the concept of down with towards the centre of mass. No, I'm not confused. You globeheads are confused because you can't, level, down, it all just gets convoluted and changes however you see fit to justify the model. So you're trying to tell me to learn, I'm trying to... Ross Smith, it's like believing Indonesia is a nice place worth visiting. Okay, can be, people surf there. Trevor Austin, again, you either measure the Earth, which has been done, or you look elsewhere, like the stars. Okay, you're going to go off on the stars again, unless, of course, you believe it's closer than the 93 million miles. And why should perspective be relevant? Only the angle between the horizon and the star needs measuring. No. Yeah, just usual crap. Frank, you've misspelled scientifically on your side. I know, but I'm not going to spend lots of time putting it right just for anal arseholes like yourself. Baked beans again. Standing on the equator, you move 6 time zones east on the globe. See? Again, it's just an assumption. It's not time zones, you move east, and wake up. Look at the constellation of Orion. When it's rising above the eastern horizon from 2 points, one in the north, you will see that up and down is point. Yes, again, you can do that across the flat room. Pilgrim Pater. Interesting that at the time of writing the summary at the top states there were 933 comments. Okay, you're going on about the comments, whatever. Food Martin. There are numerous independent measurements you can make. You don't need to know the distances to the stars to measure their relative positions, angles on Earth. Yeah, they don't prove anything though, do they? Barn Fletcher, not sure how it works, but would not a smartphone do the trick with a level app? I would have thought any so. Yeah, I did this with the flying between 2 countries. You'd have thought that you would be able to detect some difference in level, but you can't. There isn't any. What's this one? Getting to the bottom now. El Mech B, you could use 1 or 2 water level devices on 2 peaks. Okay, you're going to refer me to this silly video about water levels on the top of a mountain that wasn't. If the Earth is flat, then the levels will scribe a line which intersects the opposing peak. Yeah, again, you're going to be everything's going to be affected by perspective. Phuket word, are you in agreement with this measurement before anyone spends time performing it? Apologies if this has already been suggested, performed, or debunked, but it does seem to answer the question posed here. Okay, well, water level, yes, it's interesting that people use a water level to try and determine curvature, because water is naturally level, and it's used as a tool to measure level, and then it's, oh dear, it's funny, the irony. So again, it doesn't differentiate between what down becoming perpendicular. Stephen White, there is a problem for spinning ball Earth believers with the equator. Your first line, Nick, comes down to the center of an imaginary ball Earth. We can say that it's coming down from the north, yeah. Your second is Nick, coming down from the equator. Now, if where the second line begins on the circle is where the equator is, then the sun, okay. The problem is that there is supposed to be a 23.4 degree tilt, that word again, Nick, in the heliocentric model with a tilted Earth. The sun is not directly over the equator. Yeah, it's kind of true there. The tilt suddenly disappears from that scenario, doesn't it? Yeah. You don't have to use my name too much like that. I know you're referring to me. Jury T, logical, there is no up and down for spinning round objects with gravity in a vacuum. What you're saying, north is up on a ball, I find it's useless, not ball. Okay. Joby, good vid, Nick. It's a trick question because you can't prove something which depends on irrational explanation. That being gravity as an invisible force which does this, that and other things. Ha ha ha. Yep. Stashman, last one. Another is, why doesn't something hung from a string seek its level if it's on a ball? I put up some Christmas decks, big ball ornaments outside. They're hanging from fishing line. You are telling me that gravity is holding it perpendicular to the Earth. I'm in Boston. If we were on a ball, that ornament should be tilting towards the top of the ball. I've concluded. No tilt, no ball, period. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's good. It's just funny, isn't it? You can look at... great. It really finished off with some real-life observations that can... so there you go. I hope that hasn't taken too long to go through. So I've looked at the answers given, and they were as predicted. They mostly involved looking up at the sky. Doesn't prove anything. So we're still left with this very simple thing. Down becoming perpendicular or even opposite or even 10 degrees, 20 degrees apart from the original down has never ever been proven, and it doesn't seem it can be proven or anyone has the tools or materials or the ideas to actually prove this apart from looking up at the stars, replacing perspective with an imaginary curve. And that's where it leaves us. So I tried to see if the most simplest concept about the globe can be proven, and it can't. So thanks a lot for all those who contributed. There'll be another one coming soon, which should hopefully get the creative juices flowing again soon. So appreciate the people who have put the time into comment with constructive criticism, and I will look through, especially Mendel. I'll get back to yours if I can. Really good. Nice to see something, you know. I enjoy the thought experiments, and that's what the buzz is about this. I mean, we're trying to establish some answers. We're trying to get some real science done here, rather than adhering to this belief that is perpetuated by looking up at the stars. Okay, thank you very much. It's been fun.